Hello and welcome to my video all about how to do the Old Norwegian cast on. This can also be called the German twisted cast on, and it's very similar to the popular long tail cast on technique. The difference is that the Old Norwegian cast on creates a stretchier edge, so it's often used for socks where you want the edges to be stretchy and comfy. Basically, this method requires an extra twist of yarn per cast on stitch, and that's what creates the extra stretch. Right, so the first step is to decide how long you want your yarn tail to be, since the stitches are going to be created from this tail. There's a few ways to do this, and as you do it more and more, you'll be able to guesstimate a lot more accurately. I would estimate that you'll need about 16 inches of yarn per 20 stitches you want to cast on, but if you want to work that out yourself, you can just cast on 20 stitches and measure the amount of yarn that uses. You can also wrap the yarn once around the needle for every stitch you're going to cast on and measure it that way, or you can just use a yarn tail that's 4 times the width of the knitting project you're about to cast on. So there's a few different ways you can estimate. Measure this distance from the end of the yarn, plus a bit extra to weave in later, and make a slip knot. Put this slip knot on your needle and tighten. Make sure the yarn tail is at the front towards you, and the working yarn, which is connected to the ball of yarn, is at the back. Then take the bottom 3 fingers of your left hand and hold these 2 pieces of yarn, like so. Then take your index finger and thumb through the center of these strands, up around the outside, and create a slingshot position. If you'd prefer to avoid using a slip knot, then just drape the yarn over the needle, like so, at the point where you would have tied a slip knot. Make sure the yarn tail is towards you, and then just hold the yarns as before in the slingshot position. Okay, so once you're in that slingshot position, you take your right hand needle point underneath the 2 strands of yarn around your thumb, from front to back, and up. Then down through the loop on your thumb to the front and up. Then over, behind and under the piece of yarn in front of your index finger and up. And now the tricky bit where you just need to bend your thumb to flip the loop of yarn over, like so, and then you can go down through that loop. Release the loop from your thumb and use your thumb to tighten the stitch. You've now cast on 1 stitch. And again, so take your right hand needle under the strands of yarn around your thumb, from front to back, then down through the loop around your thumb, go over, behind and under the strand in front of your index finger, then bend your thumb to flip over this loop of yarn, and go down through this loop. Release the loop from your thumb, and use your thumb to tighten the stitch. And that's another stitch cast on. And you just keep repeating this until you've got as many stitches on your right hand needle as you need. So take your right hand needle under the strands coming from your thumb, from front to back, then down through the center of this loop to the front. Then go over, behind and under the strand in front of your index finger, bend your thumb, and go down through this loop. Then tighten. Don't worry if this loop doesn't stay on your thumb, you just need to hold it in position for long enough to go through it. And here you can see the stitches you've made so far. And here you can see how this cast on edge looks alongside some stockinette stitch. Just so you know, I started this stockinette stitch on a knit row. Here you can see one side and along the edge, and the other side. And you can see it's nice and stretchy. Here I'm just comparing it to a long tail cast on edge that I've made earlier. And you can see that one side is just the same, it has that wavy line of yarn on the edge. On the very edge, the Old Norwegian cast on is a bit thicker, and you might be able to see an extra strand of yarn per stitch. And the other side looks just the same, with those diagonal strands of yarn along the edge. So basically the Old Norwegian cast on looks just the same as the long tail cast on, except along the very edge where there's just a little extra strand per stitch. And it's this little extra strand that makes it extra stretchy. I really hope that was useful for you, and thank you very much for watching.